welcome the author of Your Mark on the World, Devin D. Thorpe.
Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, sir. Has today been awesome? 29 great speakers and me. Some of you will remember in 1976 when the Teton Dam failed. About 80% of the structures in nearby Rexburg, Idaho, were damaged or destroyed by the flood. My father invited me to go with him on a service mission to Rexburg to dig out the muck and mud out of some of the basements in Rexburg. As an 11-year-old, I thought that sounded like a pretty good deal. So I signed up. We went. Now, I'm not a big guy now. Picture me as an 11-year-old. I really probably didn't do any good. But I felt good. It was a life-changing experience for me. I felt so good, I vowed I would never miss an opportunity to help. I've missed plenty of opportunities over the years. But more recently, I've channeled that that energy of my youth, that passion. And I've now dedicated myself to writing about, advocating for, and advising those who do good. I help the helpers. Now, real helpers are rare. Research shows that only about 26% of people leap immediately into action in a crisis when there are others around. I had a couple of interesting experiences while I was living in China with my wife, Gail, that kind of bring this point home. The first experience was there's a little girl named Yue living in Guangzhou, the city where we lived. She wandered into the street and was run over by a truck and then by a car. 18 people saw her lying and dying in the street and did nothing. Finally, a scavenger for recyclables got her help. She got to the hospital before she died, but she died a week later. Now, the Chinese people are good and wonderful and kind people, but they have a cultural ethic that places privacy above helping others in that kind of a situation. Before Yue died, Brandon Wright was riding his motorcycle in Logan, Utah, and he was cut off in traffic by a woman driving a big BMW. They collided, and he ended up under the BMW, and both the motorcycle and the car were on fire. Passers-by ran to the car. There was one clear-headed woman that recognized what needed to be done. She reached down and she grabbed the car and started lifting on it. Now, she couldn't do it all by herself, but it only took an instant before everyone else realized, and a dozen people now are helping her lift the car off of Brandon Wright. Meanwhile, the last passerby that comes running up grabs Brandon Wright, pulls him out from under the burning car. Brandon Wright lived to complain about Utah drivers. I can relate a little bit to Brandon. When I turned 40 a few years ago, I bought a Harley Davidson. Now, my wife, when I bought it, she said, "I am never getting on that thing with you." And then she said, "Well, maybe I'll just go for a short ride with you." Well, before long, I was almost never alone on the motorcycle. It was wonderful. One weekend, we took a tour up through northern Utah, around southern Idaho, down through southwestern Wyoming, and then we stopped for dinner at the end of the weekend in Park City, had a wonderful dinner, and then we just cruised down the canyon into Salt Lake City. It was wonderful. We were almost home. We got cut off in traffic and crashed on the freeway going 60 miles an hour. Now, I slid. My wife tumbled down the freeway. Her helmet saved her life, but she broke all of her arms and legs. After a week in the hospital and several days in intensive care and a marathon surgery to reassemble her parts, they sent her home with me. And my friends and family and our church mates, they rallied around and took care of her for 24 hours a day until she could once again feed herself. That was the first thing she was able to do. Well, I'll tell you, of that whole experience, the scariest moment of the whole deal was when The nurse came to me and she said, Devin, tomorrow your wife goes home. Because I felt at that moment like a soldier under fire, out of ammo, completely ready to surrender. And then the community rallied around. It was like the cavalry had showed up. Now, I bet you can relate to this. You've been there, right? You've been out of money and someone gave you some cash. You were ready to beat your children to death because they really deserved it. And someone showed up and took care of them for a while so you could have a break. But you've been there, right? You were under fire, out of ammo, ready to surrender, and the cavalry showed up. Well, what I want you to remember tonight is this. Sometimes you are the cavalry. Thank you.